It is quite easy to get under Donald Trump's skin, but to live rent-free in his head is a completely different thing, something that has been accomplished by Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett only in her sophomore year in Congress, but already such a superstar in our party. In a comment that she made today on The View, calling out Donald Trump's very clear cognitive decline, has obviously set him off and has set off Carolyn Leavitt, because she melted down over it in her press conference. We're going to get into it all, but before we can see Leavitt lose her mind, of course, we have to start with Jasmine Crockett, her on The View right here.
So in a campaign where we talked about trans folk like ad nauseum, right? I just wanted to be clear that the harm that people are feeling every single day, that is not caused by trans people, is caused by the person sitting in the White House.
Yeah.
So before we get into everything today, we're celebrating Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Tell me about Juneteenth.
Listen, now I'm a Texan.
Yes, you are.
So I feel like the rest of the country is just now kind of getting tuned in.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that being a Black woman, and for those that don't understand Juneteenth, this was about the fact that the last slaves down in Texas finally 2 years later realized that, or were made aware that they were no longer enslaved people. But in this time, though, especially with the anti-DEI movement and the rollback just of our civil rights and our civil liberties as a whole, as well as ignoring the Constitution, and there's so many rights that Black folk got specifically just from the Constitution, I think that this Juneteenth, everyone, whether you're Black or otherwise, should really evaluate what does freedom look like in this country? And are we willing to fight for it? And I think, you know, evaluating what happened at No Kings, I think we are ready and willing to fight for our freedom. But I think that it is important that we come together and we define what freedom looks like for those of us in this country, not just Black folk.
That's right.
Yeah.
Do you think that No Kings demonstration is going to do something?
I hope so. I think that it's good to be in community. Right now, a lot of people are like, what can I do? And I feel helpless and that kind of stuff. But literally to show up and to see that there's so many like-minded people, as soon as you get off of X, you can find, you know, like-minded people, right? And so, like, seeing them in person and being in community and having that opportunity, I mean, it's astounding. It makes you say, you know what, I'm not crazy, okay? Like,
and I'm not alone.
Exactly. And
Whoopi says that all the time. We're not alone, and that proves it.
It does. It really does.
Anyway, in recent months, Trump has called you, quote, a low IQ person and a low life. Do you take that as a sign that you're doing something right?
I hope he also called her a lawyer. That's another thing that she is.
No, he did not. He did not.
You know, he's good at projecting, is what I'll say to that. But, you know, I can't imagine being the president of the United States with everything that's going on in the world and worried about a sophomore in the House.
Well, you're a powerhouse, darling. Don't minimize.
Still, he the president of the United States, right? So it talks about like his level of petty, number one, and it also just kind of goes to the fact that like he's not focused on the things that he needs to focus on. Listen, you're the president, I'm over in the House, and I'm trying to get these House members to do right by their constituents, which means going against you. But you're taking out your time when people are literally struggling. You said on day one you were going to reduce the price of eggs. We ain't heard nothing about it. You know, you said that you were going to stop all the wars in the world, and it seems like, you know, you go in the opposite direction. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's real issues and there's people that are hurting, and then you had this random sidekick who decided that he was going to cut off the aid to everybody, and then you're losing in court every single day. You know, talk about, listen, call him the biggest loser, because like the courts, the courts are handing him some losses. So I'm just like, can you get your stuff in order? Like, can you focus? But no.
Jasmine Crockett is spot on. Donald Trump is sick in the head, and if you wanted to support a deportation plan that had the express purpose of acting as cruelly as possible while ripping families apart, attacking people who came to this country to work hard and embrace its values of supporting freedom and the dignity of work, yeah, if you support Donald Trump, you're a little sick as well. I don't think that that's a crazy claim to make. And I know Carolyn Leavitt didn't feel that way. It's probably because she's in a cult, but let's hear a meltdown and respond.
And then really quick on Jasmine Crockett, she said, I believe, that Trump supporters are mentally ill before calling for bipartisan support against the president. Can you respond to that, especially considering she's a rising star in the Democrat Party right now?
She is a rising star. It's quite something to behold, actually. I hope that she continues to be a rising star for the Republican Party, at least. I think it's incredibly derogatory to accuse nearly 80 million Americans of mental illness. The last time I checked, Jasmine Crockett couldn't dream of winning such a majority of the public as President Trump did. And the America First movement, which President Trump has built, is filled of hardworking patriots, the forgotten men and women, business owners, law enforcement officers, nurses and teachers, and middle America, as we all know, from where you all grew up, outside of this beltway. That's who makes up this president's movement. And Jasmine Crockett should go to a Trump rally sometime and she can see it for herself.
It's always so condescending from Carolyn Leavitt. Gosh, she's just also not a very good liar. She isn't good at it. But they always take this high horse. Oh, the Democrats speaking down on Trump voters. They hate our country, don't they? Ooh, Jasmine Crockett, she must hate our country. I don't know why why is that my Carolyn Leavitt impression? I don't know. That's my pearl clutching. Donald Trump went to Fort Bragg, a military base, and got the soldiers behind him to boo the entire state of California and his governor and their mayor. So when we see this pearl clutching of, the small town in Mississippi that voted 95% from Trump, and now they're losing their Medicaid and they're losing their SNAP benefits, and we're kind of laughing, and we're like, well, karma's a hurting. And it's like, oh, these Democrats, they look down upon us. They hate America. Republicans are constantly calling the biggest, most beautiful cities of New York, Chicago, LA, garbage-ridden trash towns. We hate America? You hate the states and cities that fund your lifestyle. Red states, by the way. I know math isn't really taught there, but California is giving you money. Maybe that should compute. But it's not going to be giving you much money anymore because of Donald Trump's budget, which Jasmine Crockett called out right here.
Like, at the end of the day, would you rather have a tax bill that may be $5, less that you're normally keeping in your pockets, but you don't have this crazy random healthcare bill?
Right.
Probably so, right? Like, and the reality is that people are going to die. Listening to the stories of people that literally have only been able to live because of Medicaid, it's heartbreaking. And the fact that we're talking about rich people just keeping more money in their pockets while literally other people are gonna die, it sounds anti-American and definitely sounds anti-patriotic.
So one of the things that generally when I've covered big bills in domestic policy in DC, there's this idea of like the Senate is like the cooling saucer, and that, and that usually things come back from the Senate like more moderate, but both on the left and the right. That is generally the way things go.
Yes.
It seems to me like Ron Johnson and the sort of right-wing faction in the Senate is actually pushing to make this bill more aggressive on the cuts side. And I'm wondering if you were anticipating that, or if you thought you were expecting a more moderate bill.
No, I was expecting the Senate to fix everything. I mean, I was expecting it still to come back as a bad bill, but we're talking about
You thought it would get better.
Correct. I thought it would get better. We're talking about a bill that only made it through the House by one vote.
Right.
One vote. So literally it's like two people went AWOL, right? And another two Republicans voted with the Dems, and then another one just said, listen, I'm just gonna white light this or, vote present.
Yeah.
And so I expected in the Senate, especially because, think about it this way. Our congressional districts are approximately 766,000 people. And so literally there are some Republicans that don't have any hospitals whatsoever in their districts. But then you start talking about the Senate, every single state senator has hospitals. And when you start to talk about rural hospitals possibly shutting down because they don't have enough funding, because you're now cutting this Medicaid funding and they can't supplement because they don't have all these other people coming in with, say, private insurance, I thought the senators would say, listen, listen, we can't do this.
You know, it's funny you say that because one of the things, my understanding, again, the details here get a little complicated, but there's this mechanism called the provider tax, which actually would hurt hospitals.
Yeah.
Let's sort of do the short version that way. They're trying to squeeze more revenue. My feeling always when I used to cover Congress day in, day out was that the hospitals were big interest groups.
They are.
They will drop money on your head if they don't like it. They will be up in your office.
Yes.
Where are the hospitals? Honestly, it's wild to me that they have not shown up in a big way.
I don't know.
To fight this bill.
I have no idea. I mean, it's kind of like you saw the farmers, right? Like when we were going through that like continuing resolution, the farmers were like, wait a minute. Like they showed up, like the Farm Bureau was like, we are here, right? And so it is odd because the hospital lobby is a really big lobby. And a lot of people probably think of lobbies and they think, oh, you're going to be the antithesis of me. But when you're talking about rural America, like I lived in East Texas, let me tell you, hospitals are shutting down. And in rural America, you don't have as many providers either. And so literally, if you have this specialized cancer, you can't stay at home. You've got to go somewhere else because there's no one that knows about the help that you need. So it is really odd. And I tell you this, that there's going to be more hurt that comes to red states than blue states. Blue states can actually take in a lot of this, not to say that they should and not to say that it's right, but like it will be
disproportionately red states will get hurt by the Medicaid cuts in both these versions.
Yes.
I do want to feel bad for people who will be losing their health care, people who will be losing their SNAP benefits, people who will be less safe, and then, of course, less free. I think it's important to talk about how Donald Trump does make you less free. But you did vote for this. Not you and I, obviously. But like, they voted for it. This is what you wanted. And, you know, Tim Miller over at the Bulwark, JVL talks about this as well, if you guys are big Bulwark subscribers, that maybe for too long, the padding of the federal government and, you know, the donor states like California and New York have allowed red state voters to get away with their bad votes, right? We've kept them a little bit too safe from themselves, that there's been a lot of F around, not a ton of find out, that they haven't connected the dots, that Republicans are the ones hurting them, that the billionaires who fund the campaigns of the people they elect are actually the ones holding them down. But if there was anyone who was going to teach you that lesson, it would be this administration. I don't think you're going to enjoy it, but hopefully it changes your mind, because we can't keep living like this. But we're going to do our best to point that out, call that out, and report on it on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And while you're in those comments, you can look at the pinned comment, which is a link to my new Substack. I hope you subscribe. We're going to have a lot of cool stuff going out there. And until next time, I'll see you soon.